And we are back, folks. Another edition of the Michigan Football Breakdown focused on the offense with Al Borges. And wish we were coming together under different circumstances, people. We anticipated a Michigan victory in the college football playoff. Didn't go down that way, as we all know. The Wolverines wound up falling 51-45 out there in the desert. And while we will give TCU a ton of credit, as I have all week, as I did in the post game, a big portion of this breakdown we focused on mistakes. More mistakes in one game than any game this season for Michigan. Hell, it might be enough mistakes in that game, Al Borges, to match the number of mistakes over the course of the season in all the games combined. That's how, certainly in magnitude and costliness, that was definitely the case. First of all, Happy New Year, Al Borges. How are you?
Good,
Good.
Sam. Happy New Year to you and yours.
Yeah, like I said, I wish there was a happier start to the new year. Um, we had a lot of commentary on how this game would play out, what Michigan needed to do in order to go out there and win this one. They did several of them, but there were several others that they didn't do. So let's just start off with your broad strokes, Al Borges, your biggest sort of takeaways or theme from the game.
Well, these podcasts have been kind of, I don't know, nirvana. They've been great. It's every week for 13 weeks. They've been easy to do because the results have been so good. They haven't all gone great. But this game, Sam, you hit it on the head. And it is what it is. That this was a very uncharacteristic performance by a team who had 13 wins because they didn't make these mistakes. So my point is it is what it is. You can't put lipstick on a pig and think it's a prom queen. What happened happened, and we're going to talk about why it happened. I keep hearing what happened. Hell, I know what happened, and then watch the video, and that confirmed what happened. But let's see why it happened. One thing to look at first is TCU's approach, and not many people talk a lot about TCU defensively, particularly in terms of how they went about their business. They switched up, Sam, in this game. They played more 4 deep coverage than they played, I think, in any game all year. And it was because they were facing a heavy running team. And they're accustomed to seeing teams that are more spread oriented, where they could play their double cloud to robber defense, their Skyforce defense. It still was from a 3-man line, but the looks from the safety, hell, they were in cover 4. I had them in some form of cover 20 different times. 13 with a robber and 13 with base cover 4 and 7 with a robber. Now that matters because they were, as we said, they were going to have to add in, right? They had to add in defenders, and cover 4 was the answer to doing that. Did they pressure a lot? Well, the perception out there is that they blitzed all the time. They blitzed with 5 guys 17 times out of 75 plays. What they did a lot of is they did a lot of running through. Now, I'm sure people are hearing that a lot because it came up several times in the game. What's a run through? What's a run through? A run through means they spot a cavity in the separation of the blockers on a run scheme and blow somebody through the middle of the core. That's something that's triggered generally after they identify the blocking scheme, where a blitz is triggered immediately. Okay? But this was a tactic that they used effectively several times. Okay. So for the most part, they played their 3-man line. They pressured, like I said, 17 times. They popped a 4th guy because there's only 3 guys playing up front. They popped a 4th guy about 15 times. That's not really a blitz. That's just a 4-man pressure. Hell, you get that with a 4-man line. And I only saw one zero blitz, pure zero blitz on an empty play inside the 5 where we did not squeeze it. It was another assignment error. JJ made a phenomenal run to get down to the 2-yard line where they went for it. Okay. So that was kind of their effect, their approach. Now the next question is the question that so many are asking, okay, and I know you were too, is what was Michigan's approach? Michigan's approach was to run inside the tackles 19 times during the course of the game with either a duo play, an ISO, which was kind of new to them in this game. They've shown ISOs before, but they hadn't run them like this. They ran 6 in the game. Open zones, which is very common to them, and they had one little fullback wedge they ran out on the field. So the aiming point for the back was inside the tackle, Sam. You understand what I'm saying?
Hmm.
That's where the starting point for the back was. And a lot of this was done in the first half of the game. Now, that's not that uncommon. They're a big duo team, and that's what we said they were going to run duos. Uh, the second thing they did, they ran off tackle with some form of counter, power, punch, or duo T, where they pulled the tackle and attacked the off tackle gap 10 times. Okay. Most of that was in the second half. Okay. Although there's some in the first half. They're not all in the second because they ran the power early with an unbalanced line look. And then third, they ran outside with some form of horn, fly, or reverse 7 different times. Okay. Now, that is the crux. Now, there's a few miscellaneous steals in there that are a little irrelevant, but that was the bulk of their offensive attack. Okay. They did not use the stretch play at all. We speculated that they might. That's not a big, huge part of their offense, so it doesn't surprise me. And they did no open side pin and pulls, which we thought maybe because it had been effective against the teams that they had played, they might insert that. They didn't use that. So what? That's not part of their culture. That's probably how they felt about it. But really, at the end of the day, 3 turnovers are the difference in the game. It's not the only thing now. I'm not one of those guys that said 5 plays lose a game. So I don't believe that. And I when people tell me that, I start yawning or giggling because it was much more than 3 plays because there were opportunities to get back in the game regardless of what happened. But that was the difference at the end of the day. There was a 21-point turnaround when they didn't call the touchdown to Roman, and then the next play failed and fumbled, and the 2 interceptions for touchdowns. So that you have to attribute that as having the most impact on winning or losing the game. What Michigan did a great job of is attacking the TCU safeties. They attacked the TCU safeties. The counter pass double post to Roman, or not Roman, but Ronnie early on. The flea flicker to Ronnie attacked the near safety who was nosy, jumping the run in bunch formation. The empty double move, the same move that Cornelius Johnson put on Ohio State, Ronnie Bell put on their safety, and the trap pass dagger to Roman, which was another big play. But they attacked their safeties time and time again, and TCU did not really change much of what they were doing. Their corners were their strength. The coverage ability of their safeties was their weakness, although the run force ability of their safeties was a strength. So they went after in the passing game, I thought, pretty much what TCU didn't do as well. Okay. So in essence, that's what happened during the game from an X and O perspective. We will, in the film study, or in the film study, we will detail this and explain what happened, when it happened, and probably why it happened, which I think is the most thing. But I think that best encapsulates the way the game went and the approach of both teams. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that was their approach in terms of film study.
So several things jump out to me. First of all, I think back to earlier in the season where we were given a lecture on. I had you talk about. I had Vance talk about quarters as a run defense. Right. This was TCU's strategy, and it allows you, especially if you trigger those safeties hard, it allows you to have extra guys in the box. Continuously. Now, again, you give up something, you gain something, you give up something else. Those inside guys,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
your inside guys
Exactly.
vertical. Now you're man to man. Those guys got to be able, they got to cover. They hung out to dry, and Michigan, they destroyed them in the pass game.
Yeah, I don't think, Sam, they felt they could play their base 5 across and continually stop the run with Michigan. They had to get somebody down. We mentioned that when we did the prediction as ago. They had to get more people involved. So they had showed quarters before, but because of their conference, they weren't forced to play it as much. You know what I'm saying? Where against this team who's got multiple tight end looks all the time, packed in formations, it just fit better.
Before the game, Sonny Dykes all week, he said, "Hey, we stopped their run game, and that stops Michigan." I mean, sort of. That's essentially what he said, kind of previewing this is going to be their approach. We're going to sell out to stop the run. If they can beat us passing the football, then they can beat us passing the football, right? And that proved to be an effective strategy. As you look at Michigan's game plan, I think the timing of when they did what in the run game is important, right? Because the posture that they took to start this game of targeting between the tackles with their run in the first half, I think in part contributed to the futility of the run game. Outside of that ISO, TCU, they were up to the task of slowing Michigan or stopping Michigan between the tackles, period. And the run game didn't gain any real traction until you got until you got later in the first half, had toward the end of the second quarter, and certainly in the second half, where now you're attacking the edges continuously, whether it was with the back or definitely with the quarterback with JJ McCarthy in the second half. And things changed then. The running game got more consistent, play action picked up. They second half on, it's a whole different game. Problem for Michigan now is it's a Big 12 game now at this point. If Al, if you're talking about controlling a contest, you got to talk to you coordinators about controlling the game. Michigan would control games with their run game. Well, they couldn't do that once they're down. They can still run the football. They aren't in the position to control the game anymore when they're running game, when they're down a few scores trying to come back in the second half.
Yeah, they didn't have that all year where they had to catch up that much. And I think what after the fact, again, hindsight's 2020. I think the duo play, which is their play, right? You can't just say we can't run a duo, but it would have been a more prominent play, I believe, had the game been in balance in the second half. I think eventually those inside runs would have been better. They would have been better. But the fresh, fired up Horned Frogs were winning the game, playing the inside runs well, which the nature of their defense is pretty good against inside runs. But I think had it been the same pattern that so many games had gone for Michigan, that they would have started finding cracks in that too. Now, there's no way to really know that. Maybe they just stopped at the whole game. I don't know. But we knew just from watching the film study, and I think Michigan did to a degree too, is that the off tackle and the flanks were the softer spot of their defense. The horn plays, the power plays, the those types of things, the quarterback running, giving the ball to back and then running some of the same looks and keeping the ball, which they did in the second half. So I think the game flow dictated a lot of the thinking, but not the initial thinking. The initial thinking was to pound them, just like we assumed, and it didn't work as well as they wanted it to. But they were able to get back into the game, to their credit. But every time they did, Sam, what happened?
Yeah.
The fire got put out. Every time you got close, the fire got put. Their offense ignited and created an explosive that shifted the momentum in the other direction and forced the Michigan play calling to say, "Oh my goodness, we got to play this thing like it's a shootout," And they haven't played a game like that all year. Now, Michigan on paper, Sam, only threw, I believe, 34, 35 passes, but called 42 passes, okay? There were 42 passes called in the game, but the quarterback either scrambled on, he was sacked, or something came up where the ball wasn't thrown, but they were forced to throw 42 passes. Remember, Michigan averages throwing about 25 to 26 a game, okay, going into the game. Right around there. Last I checked their numbers. That may have been a little old statistic, but it's not a real old statistic. I would guess it's pretty close to that. So right now, you are out of your culture a little bit. Now you got a quarterback to do it. That's the good news. And you got receivers that were doing good. And they knew how to exploit TCU with the passing game. But the game flow did turn the game into a shootout, which left the margin of error for the Michigan defense very small. Or the Michigan offense, very small, I should say.
And a defense that was making some plays early, but that's another reason, another sort of, if you're looking for strategical approach, this is another asset, another attribute of controlling the game with your running game. You protect that defense more.
Absolutely, you do.
Yeah, that's an explosive offense over there. I felt like they were going to make explosive plays in this game. I felt like their opportunities were going to be limited, though, by Michigan's offense.
By the run, by being able to control the ball, and I felt the same thing. And I think had things been a little different, if they scored in the first drive, if there's an even exchange of blows early in the game, it would have been that way, but it wasn't for whatever reason. And I want to say this too, and we don't talk a lot about the offense, but their quarterback, who guys kind of said, "Oh, wasn't that great." He made plays when he needed to.
Yeah,
Sam, we had a talk our first game that we did against Colorado State about running backwards against heavy pressure defenses coming from the middle. When you're outnumbered, when there's 7 guys rushing, you only got 6 to block them, and hitting shallow crosses by buying time. We went over it on our video. We had said that Cade McNamara had broke out too soon and limited his options. Well, Dugan did it perfect twice. Not once, but twice for 2 touchdowns. One on a shorter touchdown where he ran back, could get it, bam, flipped it to the shallow cross with 3 defenders in his face, and the guy ran in the end zone. Then he turned around later on a 3rd and 7, I believe it was, and did exactly the same thing for a 70-something odd yard touchdown with defender in his face, unblocked defenders, buying time, hit the shallow. One guy misses a tackle because it's 0 coverage, right? End of discussion. So he made the plays when he had to make the plays against some tough defensive looks, but he knew what to do.
Yeah, there were some things that were predictable about this, the approach Michigan offense. You knew they were going to run a duo play. There are some things that weren't predictable, like the Philly special from the 2. You look at the pick sixes that we'll talk about and how costly they were. But certainly Michigan's 2 possessions early in the game inside the 2-yard line that they came away empty from Al, and you can make the argument that in both instances, it's a little bit outside of the norm with their approach in those couple of instances. Just it was in keeping with, wow, where did that come from? That's kind of how I saw both plays. Just the call itself with the Philly special, and then the hurry up into the dive play in the second possession. Just both of those things were not in keeping with the character of Michigan.
Yeah, and I had if you as a play caller, I had more problem with the dive to the fullback than the Philly special. The Philly special, there was a mistake. The back did not wind back and block the end, eliminated the run pass option. We'll detail that in the film study. It might have worked, might not have, but you're on the 2-yard line, 4th and 2. You're probably been practicing the hell out of it, and you had a bust. Trust me, I can relate to that because I got beat up when we threw a halfback pass down there against Notre Dame. And 2 guys didn't pull that were supposed to pull, but we don't say anything about that because we toss nobody under the bus. But I'm not coaching anymore, so I'm going to tell you what really happened. With the play of work, they were in quarters coverage, maybe not. And I'm going to show you in detail what happened on the play. But you have to have all 11 players on that play hitting on the same page, and they didn't. So the play virtually had no chance. But I didn't. As much as everybody's going to scream about that call, I'm a lot less likely. If that ball's he runs it in or he flips it to somebody, everybody's going, "Oh, what a great call, guy's a genius," right? But the other one was the one I probably had a little more problem. Now that play was a play Harbaugh's run in the past. He would put a fullback in the game. He would creep him up and hand him the ball. They'd wedge block it, and his size, a guy like Mason, or he did it with the 49ers. I saw him do it at Stanford. It's not a new play, okay? It's just new this year and new to Mullins, right? And all they did is they took Mullins, put him at the fullback position in offset, and put Bradison, I believe, at tailback just to disguise it, and ran down the line, handed him the ball, and they didn't make the exchange. But the fact that you had somebody doing something different in such a crucial situation that isn't accustomed to being in that situation made the call questionable. Now, again, if he hands him the ball, it's a touchdown. But that one to me, when they had been so successful just punching wedges in there, you know what I mean? They do it later in the game, and I think it was Mullins that did it, is they were inside the 2 or whatever. They ran a little wedge play. It was easy. They moved him right off the ball and scored. So just the novelty of that, the nuance of that was probably a little more than you needed to do in a game like this. But again, if he puts it in there, nobody says a word. It's the same old deal. But
Well, I guess I feel the same way about the Philly special that you were just saying. Putting guys in a position where high leverage situation early in the game, not accustomed to being there. You think about you know even if you move past asking your freshman tight end to make
Mhm.
that play, right? But he's been making plays,
Mhm. Oh,
but
he's been rolling. That's probably why they did it.
yeah,
Well,
but
let's give this guy another deal. He's been doing so well. Let's give him another deal. That's probably why they did it. I
but
can see
but
that.
you're also putting your converted linebacker tailback in position to be the
Mhm.
protector play side on that play, right? He has to go out there and allow Colston to have the options. That's two guys
Well,
who
there's an
are
argument for that.
yeah,
Yeah,
two
there's an
guys
argument
who
for that.
that's not really, you know,
No, there's an argument for that. But remember now, the Philly special was thrown in the Super Bowl. It's called the Philly special for a reason, right?
right?
It was called in the Super Bowl, and I'm guessing the guy threw that pass hadn't thrown a pass all year. Okay,
Right. And like I
okay.
said, I'll grant you, okay. I- Personally, I don't have a problem with a trick.
Sam,
Let me
Sam,
be clear.
Sam. That was the Super Bowl.
I
Okay.
hear you. I understand. Personally, I don't even have a problem with a trick play. I guess for me, I want my quarterback being the guy who's doing the trickeration with
Well,
the
he
ball
was.
in
He
his
was
hand.
supposed to catch the pass.
I know on the play or making a decision because here's the other thing. You get to a point, and I don't blame Colston for this. But now, your running back runs the wrong way on the play.
Mhm.
Colston has no protection. He's hung out to dry. Now it's like, okay, we'll throw it out the back of the end zone then if no one's open. So at
Oh,
least they get the ball on the two. But this is the situation, this scenario
yeah,
you're in with a guy in that position that he's not accustomed to being
yeah. That's something that you can't expect a tight end throwing a pass to process.
in. Right.
He's just not going to do that. So, and you can talk about it all you want. You practice the play in practice. When I would run a trick play, I would run a trick play, make it all look beautiful, throw it, and then show them all the things that could happen. Okay, you run it 5, 6. Well, they probably run a bunch of times before this because they had so much time to prepare, and then showing them. But in all those instances, Sam, you're assuming that guy's going to come back and block that edge guy.
Right.
Every one of them. So you're
Right.
not assuming that's going to go wrong.
Right.
So in that respect, I think what you're saying has some validity.
Yeah.
But if it's been executed and executed and executed in practice, the assumption is that you're going to execute it in the game. That's why you practice it. That's why we ran that halfback pass, is because we executed it fine. But under pressure, something went wrong. And that's something that as a coordinator, as a play caller, is very hard to account for. It's very hard to account for, but it happens. And
Yeah.
it wasn't the difference in losing the game, but it was another possible score, which who knows.
Yeah, because it was look, those were two costly mistakes, but those were two of several costly mistakes. I mean, they're more visible because they took obvious scoring opportunities away from them. But
Yes.
I mean, add it to the list. I mean, you look at the end of the game for Michigan. It ended on a mistake with the snap, right? I mean, that
Mhm.
was just par for the course. Now you got to give them credit on the coaching side. They adjusted, right? It was a first half where, from an approach standpoint, tactically, other team, even with the mistakes, which were huge, even with the touchdown that was ridiculously taken off the board, tactically, you would have to give TCU the advantage in the first half. Their
Yes.
coaches,
Very good.
their
I thought
defense,
they did a hell of a job.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought they did a hell
You
of a
got
job.
to give them the edge. But
Yep.
after the
Yep.
half, Michigan's offensive brain trust. Now they started winning the battle after the half.
Right. I would agree with that. Something we didn't talk about, we should address too, because at the time of the 4th and 2, should they have kicked? Should they have gone for it? I haven't heard it. See, first thing I said to the person sitting next to me goes, kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Kick a field goal, because it was a great drive. And it was the first drive of the game, and you want to come away with points. I kick a field goal. Your odds, it was a 2-point conversion distance, right? And your odds on a 2-point conversion are less than 50%. And now you've driven the ball all the way on the 2-yard line and you come away with nothing. So if you go for it, you can argue what the play call was, but in my mind, I would have kicked it. I would have kicked it. But some analytical expert would come back who doesn't even understand matchups. He'll just talk about numbers, okay? Because matchups matter. The numbers are secondary to who you're playing against and what the scenarios are. But all said, I would have kicked that ball. But that doesn't make me right either. I'm just saying that scene. You just hate to go down the field like that. Get to fourth down. It wasn't this much to go. It was a full two, right? I would
So,
lean towards
so,
kicking that
so
ball.
answer, and I'm gonna get all you folks who are in the comments. I'm gonna give you your opportunities to ask gorgeous Borges questions like we always do. So I will prompt you shortly, but I want to get into your head as a play caller, Al, and tell me if I'm thinking about this right. What the game plan to start the game says to me is that they came out thinking we can muscle these guys inside. We can muscle their
Mhm.
down three guys.
Which was logical. It was logical if you think about Michigan's thinking about what we do best rather than what they do best. That made sense. It's just a matter of how hard headed are you going to be about continuing to do it.
So as you went through the film study though, and Vance is going to talk about this too, and what little knowledge I have compared to you guys of the 335 said because Rodriguez would say this. I know people don't. It was a unmitigated disaster. The 335 under Rich Rodriguez here, right? What he would say was, people think the weakness of the 335 is it's soft on the inside. He said that's the farthest thing from the truth. That's where the strength of it is being able to close down inside runs. Where you're left vulnerable is if you get on the edge, and a lot of times you're gonna be on the edge against what they used to call it the bandit or the spur or whatever who
Right.
they're
The
adding.
28 position. Yeah, the ad.
Yeah,
Right.
you're gonna be on the edge against a guy like that. And Michigan saw that. I remember a game against Wisconsin back in '08, and poor Jordan Kovacs, I mean, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare for him in that game as they were just lining up, teeing off on him time
Mhm.
after time after time again. And we saw teams, whether it was pinning the four eye, attacking the weak side, or just attacking the edges like that. That was not Michigan's approach to start, but they eventually got there,
Mhm.
and it proved to be effective. And I just wonder, you know, do you think that is logical to assume that that was the thought process? They said, I know no one else has run on TCU inside all season, but nobody else is us. We're gonna come and
Well, we
bust
said it
these
before
guys
the
up
game.
on the
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah, no, we said it before the game. They're going to run 13 duo plays. They didn't because they couldn't. They couldn't. They didn't run them as successful as they wanted. But because of the game flow, they didn't get to those 13 duo plays like they had played. They all these other opponents where they were ahead in the second half and they could pound them more. But they end up running, I believe, 7 duo plays, if I'm
Mhm.
not
I think
mistaken.
that
Yeah,
was
7 duo plays and a duo kick. Uh, but a lot of that, Sam, was because they aborted that thinking, I think, a little more in the second half, like you said. But yeah, I think they were going to do what we do, make them stop what they do. We'll have some stuff for them. We'll have some other stuff, and they did. But TCU was equal to it because they presented some different looks than Michigan was accustomed to. And we're going to talk about that in the film study when we go through the run through section of that. But uh, I think that really made a difference, even as much as the add-ins did, because the add-ins it started really hurting them when Michigan started throwing the ball.
all right.
But
So before,
the run-throughs, I think, were more of a deal.
before we get to your bitter and sweet grades, Al, gotta talk about JJ, right? The psychology of pick sixes. You've been on
Ooh,
you dealt
not
with
so,
that.
not so much pick sixes as square out pick sixes. You can throw a pick six as a quarterback and recover fine. I believe that that's part of playing quarterback. You say, I stared it down. The guy picked it. I just won't stare him down like that. But when you throw an out cut, this is something that you have to coach the quarterback and know the quarterback to understand. When you throw an out cut and it's late and a guy enters, because an out cut is a route that's thrown because the defense is soft enough where you could throw it on time and beat him. Well, he didn't throw it on time. He threw it late, okay? And a hair behind him, which hurt. Okay, coach him, fix it. But in the quarterback's mind, and I know just listening to Joe Montana, is he threw an out cut back in '87 against the Vikings in a playoff game that was intercepted for a touchdown. And even the Joe Montana, who may be at least one of the top 2 quarterbacks to ever play, was very, very I don't know what the word I want to use. He was a little nervous about throwing speed outs after that. It can affect you. It can affect you. Now, a good guy, some guys, and Joe wasn't a powerful arm guy where JJ is. I think JJ can throw that route with his eyes closed, but he's got to learn how to time the cut. It's that simple, but it can have a residual effect sometimes.
Yeah, it was. And so what happened on that play? Was it just late?
Yeah, it was like it was. I'm gonna. You and I, we went through this. We spent a lot of time on this thing yesterday when we illustrated it. I'm gonna go into all details, but a speed cut, a route where the receiver, and he did it from the slot, but his split was reduced enough where the route was very throwable. A speed cut, there is no plant in the break. He's not trying to fool the defender. He's simply throwing the route and running the route because the defender's loose enough where if it's timed right, it's a pitch and catch throw. But what happened on the throw is it's from the shotgun. Now, we used to throw this under center a lot, but from the shotgun, it's basically a 1-2-3, hit your right foot, plant and throw it. I call it a plant throw or a rhythm throw. Okay. And as we talked about a lot, every time your feet move, every time you hitch step or take a step you don't need, the defense can close 3 to 5 yards, depending on how good the player is, right? And particularly when you compound that with the square out was to the right. It was to the right, which the quarterback tends to look quicker because he can, it's right in his vision. So if you hitch the throw, he undercut the throw and took it back for a touchdown because the ball was late. Now, understand on a speed out, the receiver should take about 3 steps out of the break and the ball should be on him. Well, on that one, the receiver took 5 steps out of the break, which was the hitch step. That was the hitch step. And that afforded the inside safety to jump the cut. But if you freeze it, which I did on the all 22 because I studied this play to the umpteen, there was clear separation when he hit his right foot. If the ball's thrown on time, it's a completion. But because of the hitch step, he gave the guy an opportunity to do it. And that's something he'll learn from. He'll learn from that. He's I think aggressive and smart, and he'll figure it out. But it's hard to learn the hard way in a game like that. And I know how that can be.
What about the second interception?
The second interception was a missed read compounded by a stare down. Okay. So what they were in cover 1 or man free. The Michigan had a shallow follow route, which 88 was shallow crossing and Colston Loveland was coming in behind him in cover 1. Now the corner jumped Colston and left Ronnie Bell. I believe it was Ronnie Bell, wasn't it? Open to the corner, okay, which is really where the ball should have gone in that coverage. What happened is JJ just got off him a little too quick, and what TCU was doing is they were playing what I call rat. A rat means one defender is ratting the short area and keying the quarterback's eyes. He doesn't have anybody, Sam. All he has is the quarterback's eyes. There are 3 linebackers. One guy was ratting out his eyes. Another guy was assigned to stop him from scrambling, the middle linebacker, and the other linebacker had a Donovan Edwards man-to-man. So it was a perfect storm of events. They were trying to stop JJ from scrambling, and when he hit the back foot, took a little hitch and looked into to Colston, that guy just moved with him and jumped right underneath the break. Now I have had that happen before. That's not news and all that. But at the end of the day, again, everything's a learning process. He's still learning. Is keep your helmet straight up the field. When you see the corner jump, that second follow route, take the ball in behind him to the corner. So there's so many things that quarterbacks have to learn and have to do. It's not, and some of it's on the job training, and that's hard. And it's hard, particularly in a game like this. But that's basically, as I saw it, that's why both those balls were intercepted. Somebody might feel differently, and more power to them. But that's what I felt happened.
All right. It is time for the bitter and the sweet, and then we'll get into the grades. As I do, I will prompt you now. If you have questions for Al Borges, you got questions for Gorgeous Borges, start putting them in the comments now. Give you the opportunity, ask as many as possible in the time that we have left after he gives his bitter and sweet and his grade. So let's go ahead and jump into the bitter and the sweet, Al.
Let's start with a bitter. God, these bitters have been so easy, Sam. All of us have been so, they didn't have to dwell on them too much, but there's some bad ones. they've missed 4 run throughs, okay, that I counted, and I've been over it enough. I think that's pretty accurate. And that took a bite out of the running game because they were tackles for loss. I believe they had 11 tackles for loss. That's what I heard. I didn't actually chart those, but I chart what happened. I didn't take the numbers on that. So that hurt the running game a bunch. They had 3 false starts and 1 late snap. Again, they've had false starts, but I don't know if they've had 3 in a game, and then the late snap at the end of the game. I don't know why. I'd have to talk to players if I was coaching them, but those are missed chances. One of those false starts was inside the 20-yard line. Okay. They missed 3 pickups in blitz. Okay. And I think some of this attributed to, I said 3, they missed 4 pickups where either the back didn't take the right guy or a lineman didn't take the right guy or something. And this is attributed a little bit to the 3-3 because pickup can be a little different against 3-3, and the novelty of the defense might have thrown them. That's possible. Okay. I had, and again, this is my number. I don't want no one lock this into stone. I'm just saying, based on what I saw as a coach, I saw 11 blown assignments where a guy did not block the right guy or the guy aimed the right one. And Michigan's never had 11. I've never had them in any game with that many blown assignments. Some of those, the run throughs, those are all part of them now. The run throughs, the missed pickup, those types of things. The 2 interceptions for touchdowns. I don't want to go into that anymore. We already detailed that. The fumble inside the 5. Those were painful. I mean, those very painful because it's 21 points right there, right? It's 21 points. So those were the most bitter. There's other things in there that weren't great, but I think those were the most impactful. Okay. The sweet, well, that ISO, the first play of the game, came out, hit him right in the mouth, got him in a good defense to do it. Now, it wasn't as good a play later. Like I said, they ran it 6 times. They had another one hit decently, and they ran it from a couple different variations. They wrapped the fullback around one time. You know, they did it a couple different ways, but it really hit big only one time. The counter pass double post to Ronnie Bell was just beautiful. Again, they isolated their inside safety on a post move. He beat him. JJ made a great throw. It was cool. The slot reverse was run damn near to perfection. Okay, they got Loveland, I believe, out in front of him, and it was just we're gonna illustrate that one because it's pretty cool the way they did it. But I thought that was really a good play. The flea flicker was timed perfectly. It was timed perfectly. The 28 was poking his nose up into the line of scrimmage, and they had brought down another safety to play on the point man. They made the handoff, the pitch back, and everybody was pulled up. Ronnie just blew right by him. Great call. The quarterback counter, a couple of quarterback counters, one for a touchdown, which was what we talked about in the pregame depiction. We talked about add-in counter plays for the quarterback to run the ball. They had a quarterback counter lead is what it was. They led with him, and it was blocked perfect and run right back up underneath the safety, an unblocked safety, but JJ beat him, and that was really a nice play. They had a great play. They had an empty reverse, an empty double move, the same move that you saw CJ do on the Ohio State safety. Ronnie Bell did it on the TCU safety for a touchdown. And the beautiful trap pass dagger where Roman ran right by the guy and he got robbed out of a touchdown. I thought that was a horrible call, but and was impactful, very impactful call. And I believe a lot of the officials after the game claimed that was a bad call. No, not Michigan fans, but people that actually knew. I think that call was relitigated, re-officiated, and was obviously a touchdown. But for whatever reason, it wasn't obvious to the replay official. So there was some good stuff. I mean, come on now. TCU played good on defense. They gave up 527 yards. Now, I know they play in the Big 12 and all that, but 527 yards in any conference is not good defense. Now, creating two touchdowns for intercept, that's great, but that they did not stop Michigan. And although Michigan didn't run the ball to their standards, they still rushed the ball for 185 yards, which is respectable rushing, enough to impact your play action game, which it did. So I think there was, again, you go back to the same things that everybody noticed that probably lost the game in a few minutes. And we're going to talk about some things that maybe people didn't notice. But I think that was really the reason. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, from a grades perspective, are we ready for that, Sam? I
We
don't
are
want to
ready
jump
for the
the gun.
grades. Let's jump right in.
Yeah, doggone it. I gave the O line a C minus, and I was probably kind. Okay. I was probably kind. I think that they did a nice job on some plays in protection and on a couple running plays. They did a nice job, but overall play was not the standard. Nowhere near a Joe Moore offensive line. The tight ends were not a lot better. I gave them a C. Wide receivers played pretty good. They did a pretty nice job for the most part. I gave them a B. They made some plays in space. They won some matchups. They probably, of everybody, was the most productive entity within the offense. The quarterback was a C because I can't give him any better than that when there's two interceptions thrown. I can't do that, but he made some phenomenal plays. In fairness to him, it wasn't all bad. As a matter of fact, there was more good than bad, but the bad was really bad. So
Yes.
it is what it is. And the first time all year, Sam, this is the first time because I don't think I've graded the running backs lower than a B all year. In most instances today, but the running backs were very average in this game. The thing we said about the Michigan running game, do you remember we said, Sam, the two things that make it go is the ability to get every play started, remember? And
Mhm.
the ability for running backs to win one-on-one opportunities in the open field. Neither took place in this game. I don't even remember a time when somebody got beat, somebody juked somebody or whatever, broke a tackle, or whoever it was, and there were several errors out over and above that, and pickup and assignments. It just wasn't a good game for the running backs, but it's few and far between because they played very, very well all year, but it was untimely to have it happen in this game. So,
No doubt. All right. It is time for the questions that we can start getting from you, the people, to our guy, Gorgeous Borges. So let's go ahead and start getting with them now. Said, here's one from Steve Schick. Said, Coach Borges, you said in a previous breakdown that Michigan's run scheme is next level, cutting edge. What about the passing scheme?
oh, I think the passing scheme's good too. You just got a quarterback who's still developing, but they run basically West Coast concept passing game, which is cutting edge. That's what the NFL, most of the NFL does. Their routes are drive routes, hank routes, flood routes, everything that you put on an NFL tape, you see basically the same routes. Hell, Harbaugh coached in the NFL. So their pass game is good, but it is still work in progress. So what's happening, I think, is the lean to win is much more towards the run game. So less is put on the quarterback. This was a game where more was put on the quarterback for obvious reasons. And some things showed up uh, that uh, that hurt him because I think he hadn't done as much of that in the previous games. The one thing that if you want to critique their passing game, is they are not an RPO team. Okay, they simply are not an RPO team, and that's very contemporary. And that's what a lot of people are doing, and they don't do that. We've talked at nauseum about that on why they don't do it, but I think that makes them a little less college and a little more pro, if that makes any sense. Not that pros don't run RPOs, but they don't do it near like the colleges do. So, but I think their passing scheme is fine. It needs to be refined with the quarterback as he develops more and more.
Yeah, I wonder, is that the next step in the evolution? Because by the end of the season, you could say that Michigan's a play pass team. For the first 2/3 of the season, you couldn't say that. I mean, they would
No,
play
you're right.
pass.
No, you're right.
It was not a staple of their offensive approach until the very
Right. Well, they threw 9 shots in this game. I don't think they threw 9 shots all year in one game.
end. Right.
Yeah, they threw 9 shots, and they hit. They were good. They there's a reason they threw 9 shots because I didn't do the total yards, but I promise you it's significant. With Ronnie Bell catching a couple of them, Roman catching a couple of them, Colston catching a deep over route. There was some nice looking plays. We couldn't illustrate all the good plays, but the problem is what happened between.
Yeah. Evan Corson said, throwaway by Loveland would not have been legal. Only the player that receives a snap can throw the ball away. I said throw the ball out the back of the end zone. I'm talking about in the direction of a receiver, not just run to the line of scrimmage and just throw it out of bounds. Throw it legally to
No,
the end zone out the back.
I don't believe that's true anyway. He can throw the ball away uh, as long as it's near a receiver. He can throw the ball away. What he can't do is he doesn't get the same liberty the quarterback does.
Quarterback does. Is
If
what I
he's outside the pocket, he doesn't get to throw the ball past the line of scrimmage, not near anybody, and still not get
Right.
intentional grounding.
Right.
But he can throw the ball away as long as it looks like it's near a receiver.
Yeah, and
I
I don't
believe.
think there's any receiver to that side, which is
Check
why.
that rule. If I'm wrong, I will admit it, but I don't think I am wrong.
Well, even if you are, what I said was throw it out the back of the end zone. So
Yeah, but you can still get an intentional grounding throwing it outside. It doesn't almost ever happen because I used to tell the quarterback, just throw over the inline 5 miles. They'll never call an intentional ground, and they never did. So you're probably right, but you can technically get an intentional grounding throwing the ball out of the back of the end zone if nobody's near the ball. So
all right, here's one from Eric Tobert. Says that big run to start the game may have given them too much confidence, and they got cute with the play calling because they felt like they could do whatever they wanted to do against TCU based on that run, which turned out to be fool's gold. What do you think, Al Borges?
I think it's a pretty astute observation because the ISO hit so good, right? I mean, it gashed him. It was beautiful, man. They went back to it a lot. They ended up running it 5 more times, and it didn't hit near as good the other 5 times. So it's easy as a play caller to fall into that. Hey, let's go back to what worked, right? And pound it, thinking it's going to work again. Uh, so that probably was a little bit of that. But I didn't even expect him to put an ISO in for the game, so they surprised me. They surprised me, but they did get. If you, in other words, Sam, if you look at the total yardage that the ISO gained, it's going to be a big number.
All on
But
that one play.
it's that one run. If you look, and this is what we looked at in run games, so we never got deceived by that. If you look at the efficiency of the ISO in terms of how many times it gained 4 yards or more, that number's not going to be near as good. So
Yeah, I think you said they ran it 6 times, and it basically hit that big run, and I think it maybe got 4 yards one other time before the
yeah,
six.
another one gained 6 or 7 yards. They what they did is they had like 3 variations of it. They had the base offset eye, which they hit the first time. They had the one where they set on the wing, and the guy would motion in an ISO, and then they had another one where he was offset weak and he wrapped around an ISO. But it was all the same play. It was just a different way to get to it.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's get back to it. And this one is another one about pass game. People want to know if you think Michigan needs a pass game coordinator, but they threw for I don't know however many yards. Pass game really got going. Says Coach, this is from Brick. Can you talk about how much losing Schoonmaker impacted the offense?
I think not having him always impacts the offense. I've been saying that all year. He is a reliable target for the quarterback. He's very comfortable throwing the ball to Luke Schoonmaker. Make no mistake about it. And that when he's played significantly, which he did most of the year, he was a continual target, and he had several catches. So losing that target, you would hope that the void would have been filled with Colston, which to a degree was, but having both of them would have been, I mean, really, really good. And I never make excuses. You got what you got. Michigan's got enough talent to beat TCU, but it does impact you losing your probably best receiving tight end and obviously the best running back in the Big Ten, and maybe better than that. So that does hurt, but I still believe, even with that said, they still could have won that football game.
All right. On to the next one. Here's one that I know you have an opinion on. Coach Borges, Michigan always seems to struggle in bowl season. Would extended playoffs with less time off benefit Michigan? I know you had to analyze, bowl prep strategy in your career. What do you think about Michigan's struggles in the postseason?
Well, I would if I'm not going to say what they should do. I'm going to say what we did because when I was coaching, we went to a span of struggling some bowl games. What we did is because we weren't playing as well in bowl games as we were during the season. We went to somebody who had played well in bowl games. And when I was at San Diego State with Brady, we called Kyle Whittingham, who had at that time had a bowl victory record. I don't even remember what it was. But after talking to Kyle, Brady changed a lot of what we did in bowl games at San Diego State and somewhat at Michigan. Uh, and it made a big difference. And it was just the approach to economize your game plan time rather than put your game plan in early and get it stale by the time it's been run a month, or work your young guys, work your fundamentals, can maintain the timing of your passing game. You know what I'm saying? And then work your game plan as you got closer to got to the bowl site and did all that. And it worked very nicely for us. Our kids were fresh and fired up. But all that said, that may not even be the answer. That's just one thing we did. Is if you aren't doing well in bowl games, you have to take a real close look at why. What are we doing uh, that's keeping us from playing top level? Are we not practicing our passing game enough, losing timing with that? Are we not hitting enough, losing physicality with our runs? We don't want to get anybody hurt. So, there's certain things you got to make some sacrifices on that you may not want to play well in that bowl game. But I think you have to just look at everything you do, what happened in the game, and did what we did cause those problems?
All right. On to the next one. Coach Borges. If you have questions for Gorgeous Borges, be sure to put them in the comments and I will get to them if I can. Here's another one. This one from Troy Flynn. Was it targeting at the end of the game? It looked like obvious targeting.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I guess
Thought it was
it
targeting.
did. It did look like targeting. It did kind of look like targeting. You know what I thought happened, and I don't like this, so I'm just going to be clear on this before. Is I don't think he wanted to dictate the outcome of the game with that call, so they just kind of bugged off it. I think that's what happened. If I was to guess, say we're not going to call target, give them another play, let them throw that thing up there, and everybody say the only reason they won because we call it target. That's what I think was in the because it did look like targeting.
Oh, you mean kind of like taking a touchdown off the board early?
Yeah, kind of like that. But
Kind
the
of like
only
that.
difference is, yeah, kind of like that. The only difference is this one was at the very end. And at the very end, I'll give you an example, Sam. I coached with guys that when you throw a Hail Mary pass, the defensive coordinator said, do whatever you want to the receiver. They will not call pass interference. Never. And how many times have you seen it on a Hail Mary? Almost never. Because if they, for some reason, do, have them line up and throw it again. Right? And then like the pros where you get the ball down on the 2-yard line. So they said, you can maim the receiver, do whatever you want, keep him from catching it. They're not going to call it. And in all the years, in all the Hail Marys, I don't recall a pass interference called on a Hail Mary. Now, there's probably one somewhere, but it didn't happen to me. So,
Right. All right. This one from Elijah Smith. How can the passing game be better integrated into the offense for next season? We kind of talked about this a little bit. Al, what do you think?
reps, 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 timing, timing, timing. That's all I can say. Reps, 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 timing, timing, timing. Off season, having the quarterbacks get the guys together and throw 7-on-7s till they puke, so that you're so familiar with it that when it comes time to play, it's a natural. Now there's no more quarterback competition, right, Sam? There's
Mhm.
no more, well, it might be Cade, it might be Jay. It's JJ, okay? Get with JJ, get with those receivers, and work your butt off on running routes, timing throws, and there's so many ways to do that. You can do it by yourself, just throwing on air. You can get the rest of the dudes out there and go 7-on-7. You can run little skeleton underneath drills and do it. They can do it all on their own. They don't even need a coach out there to do it because they don't let coaches do it at that time. And then you take that into spring football, go through the whatever it is, 15 days or what, I don't know what they do anymore, but work on it then. And then when that's over with, start all over again and bring it into the season. And I promise you, if you take a real conscientious approach to making your passing game better and you have a good passer, which they have, that passing game will be better the next year. I promise you that'll happen.
All right. Here's an interesting one from Evan Corson. As a play caller, how much humility is needed, i.e., running into their strength because we're that good?
Well, I said this before, and I don't think it's so much humility as it is just being dogmatic. Uh, to be a good running team, and I said this before, you have to have a hard headed approach. You can't let failure discourage you. Okay. I was not a good looking dude, Sam. So when I went into a bar and it got to about 1 or 2 o'clock, when I was single, I just kept working at it. And if this girl didn't like me, I go to the next one. And eventually, instead of feeling discouraged and rejection, I usually came out okay. I mean, it wasn't always a prom queen, but what the hell? That's a
Al,
bad one.
I don't know. It seems like you got a prom queen, man. Some
Well,
people
no, I
doing
know, but
something
I'm
right
just,
now.
hey, Sam, a blind hog finds an acorn every so often. But that's a terrible analogy, but it is in part true. You got to do it and not let a lack of success doing it keep you from continuing to do it. But now everybody's out there going, oh, no, there is a point where and I'm not sure when this point is. Sometimes you got to be in game flow where you can't beat your head against the wall anymore. I mean, I got beat to death when I always think of my Michigan experiences. We ran the ball 27 times for 27 yards against Penn State, and I still hear about that play. I still hear about 20. You're too stubborn. You're too well. That's probably true. You know what? I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably won't. But you'll never get good at running the ball if you don't have a bit of a hard-headed mentality about doing it. You just got to know when to cut and run.
So here's my counter to that, play caller. To me, it's not how many times they ran the ball. It was how they ran or where they ran the ball, because there was film on where they were most vulnerable. I'm talking about they being TCU, where TCU was most vulnerable. And when Michigan started attacking where TCU showed that vulnerability on film, they started having more success. So the question isn't, or is it too stubborn to come into this game trying to run the football? It is, hey, running in a place where they showed themselves to be fairly stout, as opposed to choosing to start out running in a place where they've shown vulnerability. Like, why would you choose to run where they've been stout versus the place where they've been giving up yards all season?
Well, you know the answer to that question. Coaches are victims of their successes, just like coaches are victims of their failures. Okay. If you've run duo players up people's ass for 13 games, okay, not all perfect, but by the time it was all said and done, all your instincts are going to say, I don't care if it's TCU. That's not arrogance. That's just believing that you have a play that you're good at and you're going to run. It's common sense, right? And I'm going to make them prove to me they can stop that play because basically not very many other teams have. Okay. And their structure looks like it's doable. So, and you hear all the, well, it's a 3-3, they're good inside and all that. Well, they haven't played us yet. So maybe there's a little arrogance, but the point is why can't you mix a little of both? You know what I'm saying, Sam? Why can't you run? And they did this a little bit, but they didn't run many counters early, and the counters were something that had shown a lot of vulnerability to, right? Quarterback runs were non-existent early in the game, but quarterback runs are another thing that they showed some. So if you're going to critique them, I would not say that they attacked inside too much. I would say they should have mixed their runs more and said, okay, this is what's vulnerable. Let's tap this. They did do that.
They did.
But there's an argument that it probably happened too late. I don't know. I've been there, Sam. I've been there, Sam. I know.
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, what they started the second half, I think, makes my point. I think it makes Evan's point, and I think they would concede that, okay, yeah, the way we attacked in the second half. If we had done that in the first half, even with the mistakes, we may have had some more. We would have had some more success running the football.
Yeah, probably would have. Yeah, would have, could have, should have. So, yeah, and again, it's how you're going to go into it. Are you going to fire your guns that have been blazing all year, or are you going to test the waters on some other stuff? That's the That's the decision you make. Sometimes it works out great. Sometimes not so good.
Hey, easy for my seat, right? Armchair.
Easy for my seat. It's
Right.
easy for my seat. But I know I've heard all these critiques in 30 years. The one guy talked about getting too cute. That one drives me the craziest. Now. Let me tell you something, Sam. I never tried to get cute on a play call. I have tried to deceive the defense before, but cute never entered my mind. Okay.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. This is another one from Evan. They're asking themselves this question: why are there so many more missed assignments in this game?
I cannot definitively answer that question, but I can guess. And I think the nature of the 3-3 defense probably threw them for a loop, and you're going to say, well, they had 4 weeks to practice it. Yeah, well, they didn't practice it against TCU. They practiced against scout teamers, okay? Because I doubt seriously if their starting team ran the 3-3 to give them a look. And the speed and the run-throughs and all the stuff did not happen in practice the way they happened in a game. And I think if I was to guess, I would say that would be a reason why. So right, wrong, or indifferent, that was my first instinct.
All right. Al, what are some of the more challenging issues for offensive players and offensive coaches during bowl prep for Mike McBee?
Number one is trying to keep your passing game timing. That's it. That's challenging now. Because if you have a layoff, say your kids leave for Christmas or do whatever for a week or whatever, and you come back, it's easy to get out of your timing in the passing game. That's a huge deal. So we were always very mindful of trying to keep at least 7-on-7 drills, something, not necessarily full team periods, and maybe just independent 7-on-7 drills. I don't know. So we could do that. Number two is making sure that you don't install too much offense because you have so much time on your hands, and then end up doing a bunch of stuff that doesn't isn't your culture. You know what I mean? Not that you can't throw a few things in there now. That's use that time wisely. But there is a tendency to treat offense like a candy store and eat too much and get sick, Sam. And particularly when you got 4 weeks to shop for the candy. Okay. That's a definite tendency in bowl games. And other thing, you can wear your kids out if you practice too much, and they won't be fresh and fired up and excited to play. These, and I'm not saying any of this stuff happened. I don't know. I'm just saying these are the things that we were keenly aware of in bowl games.
All right. On to the next one. Brandon McNally says, Coach, do you feel it took the staff a long time to recognize and adjust to the aggressiveness of TCU's linebackers and safeties, particularly with the play action over the top?
I don't think it took a long time. I think it became increasingly evident on their first play passes, or or the first time they took a shot at one, and I don't even have the timestamp on that. But let me see. I'm just looking at he's talking about when, and I'm looking at the call sheet. But it became increasingly evident that they were going to bite runs for sure. So you were going to pull the core up, and it was going to be single coverage on everybody pretty much, but mostly the safeties. Okay. And once they realized the safeties couldn't cover their guys, they could trap pass, they could use any action they really wanted to use, and it was going to end up one-on-one outside. It was just a matter of who you wanted to put one-on-one. And in their instance, it was mostly Ronnie Bell and Roman Wilson. So when they spotted that, I think they spotted it fairly early, but they still wanted to play their game for a while before they got into it.
All right. On to the next one. Ricardo Douglas says, how much was overlooking TCU preparing for Georgia or Ohio State responsible for the uncharacteristic play and seemingly unprepared game plan? What do you think, Al?
I don't think there's any of that. I think that's a nebulous generalization. I think that Michigan had their eye on the ball. Now, is Georgia looming? Sure, but let me tell you something. Any of that probably went away real quick once the game started. But I don't really think.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a factor. I don't
think
they
overlooked them either. I don't. Well, I don't think they were looking at Georgia or Ohio State. I do think they thought they could push this team around.
Well, sure, but they think they can push every team around. So that's there's no novelty to that. They think they can push every around. And then when they saw 3-3, they probably perpetuated that thinking even more. But I always find I hear that all the time. You're looking past it, and that has happened now. I'm not going to say it didn't happen, but in a playoff situation where you're playing one of the best 4 teams in the country, I doubt seriously if that was the mentality. I think TCU contributed a lot to the lack of success for Michigan, as much as Michigan contributed to their own lack of success. So I'm not going to put that one on them.
On this, Venice 902/91 says, not saying Texas TCU quarterback is bad, but he's not even in the same ballpark as CJ Stroud. I would say, what game did you watch?
Yeah, I don't know. That kid's pretty good, and he didn't play his best game. He didn't. Yeah,
you know what he did? Every time they needed a big play,
he made it.
He made it.
He made it.
I
told you those 2 blitzes.
And at times his dudes didn't even help him out. I mean, he had one of his incompletions / interceptions was a pass right in the
guy's hands.
Yeah, right. I mean, the dude drops it and it turns into an interception. What I know is early in that game, him running the football extended drives and gave him scoring opportunities. And late in the game, him buying time on blitzes and finding the receiver was the reason. He was the catalyst. So I'm
no.
Like I said before, you want the highest, pro prospect. Go for that.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Right now, I want the quarterback that's going to give me the best chance to win a college football game. That's Max Duggan. And his
Yeah.
team advanced. His team is playing for the national championship. Now, you might say, well, CJ Stroud did everything he could. I'll give you that. CJ Stroud played probably his best game. But you look at the talent disparity between Ohio State and Georgia. Is there one? Look at the talent disparity between TCU and Michigan. Who elevated their team more?
Yeah.
He's a
I
ball.
think
I keep giving you the
the
ball.
guy's a baller. Yeah, the guy's a baller. I don't think there's any question about it. I'm sold. And like I said, I don't know that he even played his best game, but he
Man,
had a way of making it happen when they need. I was just so impressed how he handled blitzes because Michigan went Jack Batty on blitzing in the second half, particularly, and he handled their blitzes with unblocked defenders, Sam.
yeah, man.
Unblocked defenders. He handled their blitzes and made them pay.
And
And
that's
that's
what I'm
the
talking about.
sign of a good quarterback.
Under duress, under adversity, in the face of sheer adversity, making the play and having to be the reason your team won. Yeah, Michigan made their share of mistakes, but that dude had to make plays to win the game for his team, and he did. I know this. After the game, Van said, "Man, their quarterback beat us." Now, again, Michigan made their share of mistakes. I am not saying that at all, but I didn't come out of that game saying Max Duggan is overrated or I thought too highly of Max Duggan. I came away saying the opposite, man. That dude is what I thought he was. That's what Devin said. Devin said, man, I thought that dude was just a guy. He's not just a guy.
No,
He's not
no,
just a
he's
guy.
not. No, he's I don't know. He may not be a great pro quarterback, but college quarterback and pro quarterback are two different things.
Yes, they are.
Two different things. I would say Tim Tebow would be among the top two or three college quarterbacks that I've also seen play, but could not play professional football. But if you put Tim in a college game against a first round draft pick who may go to 3 Super Bowls, I would pick Tim in a college game because the game's different. The
It's
game's played different,
100%.
and it's a different dynamic. So, uh, yeah, I'll stop there.
That's a great analogy. Great quarterback. One of the greatest college quarterbacks ever, Tim Tebow. Not a good pro prospect at all. Adam Shepardson, this is an interesting one. Do you feel like Donovan isn't healthy enough to run into the pile at the goal line, or short yardage isn't a strength of his? Al, you think they probably were worried about the hand in a
I would guess, yeah.
situation?
I would guess they were. Otherwise, I'd just hand the ball to Donovan. But there had to be a factor there that we don't know for the reason they did that. They don't want to pound him inside there and get him hurt, and he couldn't play the rest of the game. I understand that. Mullins is a big physical kid. Had taken a few balls and scored on him. So there was a reason for what they did. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
It does bring into kind of first of all, at least maybe it's just hindsight 2020, but going in, I would have thought JJ McCarthy's my second best running back. My
Oh,
second best
I don't.
running back in this game
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. And I don't
is
think-
JJ McCarthy. So after I run Donovan, I'm running JJ. They eventually got to that point. It does
Yeah.
bring in the question for next year. If Blake doesn't come back, what does your backup running back situation look like? Because they do have a couple of younger tailbacks, and down the stretch of the year, they bypassed both of those guys and went with a converted linebacker at that spot.
Right.
And
The
so,
magical question, Sam, when you're setting up your offense, and I had to do this when I came to Michigan, but I've done it other places. The magic question to me, and particularly in contemporary football, with the spread looks and the zone reads and the +1, the magic question is how many times do you want to run your quarterback in a game? How many times do you want him to have the ball under his arm and understand too that he's going to be throwing probably 30 plus times?
and I would ask you, play caller, what game are we talking about? Are we talking about game 1 or game 14?
No, I'm talking about day one.
Oh, day
Now,
one.
obviously, we all kind of on the same page. I always said I was indiscriminate at the end of the season. I had Jason Campbell run all year, the year we were undefeated. But at the end, I start putting in all these quarterback runs. You got to start looking at me funny. I haven't done this. I go, yeah, but you can. You can. But no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about designing your offense based on the skill set of your quarterback from the get. Okay. I got Denard Robinson. He's got to carry the ball 22 to 25 times. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Maybe more than that, maybe less in certain games. I don't know. My issue when I came here was Denard couldn't stay in a game. I watched him play, and he'd get hurt every game. So I was trying to trim a few of those. But that being said, how much you want to run him? And now you know that running is going to affect the other guys, because some of those runs he's going to be threatening pulling the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's where you got to, and when you go into every game plan, you got to consider how many times when I'm done do I want to look at that. I want to look at that box score and see how many times JJ ran a football. And if it isn't X amount, then I probably didn't call the game the
All
way.
right, so let's end because we got the film study to do. So let's end this way because look, it's a loss, so you're obviously gonna be talking about more negatives than positives. That's just the nature. They lost the game. They lost the final game of the season, and they didn't play. They didn't play their best football. However, Al Borges, this was a great season. This is a great season by this team. Lot of growth, emerging stars. You feel like they'll have what it takes to be right back in this mix next year, right?
Oh yeah, well, why not? Why not? Got to get a backup running back. I'm talking about offense now. Again, I don't want to speak out of school on defense, but got to get it back up running back. I think they'll be equipped at receiver. The quarterback will be a year later, a year more mature. No reason why they can't be back.
What would be your offseason sort of list of objectives for JJ McCarthy? Because that's huge. I mean, this is a guy immensely talented, will be a Heisman Trophy candidate entering the season.
A sound foundation for fundamental quarterback play is first, and everything else is way down the line. He will learn how to read defenses as he plays more. I'm sure of it. He's an ambitious kid who wants to do well. But I want a consistency to his fundamental play in the middle of the pocket. That will make him a 60 to 70% better quarterback. That's a lot, Sam. That's a lot. Okay. But if he can do that, I mean, there's a lot of other things that you can point to. But if you ask me for the number one thing, I want a solid foundation of fundamental play.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Footwork, timing, route understanding. When the ball comes out, he still is erratic at times. And I think he's so good at the third play, Sam, the improv play. But we got to get him better at the structural plays. He's going to make those improv plays. He's going to. If his footwork's good, if his fundamentals are good, he's going to naturally make a lot of improv plays when people aren't open or for whatever reason protection breaks down. But it's the plays that are gimmies and need to be timed right, need to be thrown. Those are the things I think that he has to really focus on in the offseason.
No doubt he will. I mean, he does all the extra work on his own. He has a quarterback coach that he works with. I have no doubt that he'll be in the lab working on those things in the off season on his own time. So, folks, what comes next for us? The film study. All the film studies will go up in succession. Right now, we're on the breakdown phase. So we will be doing the breakdown with Vance a little bit later on this afternoon. So be on the lookout for that, and be on the lookout for the film studies tomorrow. And watch them. They were painful to do. I know they'll be painful to relive, but you'll come away understanding a lot more about why different things happen. Like we focus so much on the Philly special. Like, why would you call that play instead of focusing on why it broke down? You think they just had it dialed up? No, that's not. That's not. That doesn't
Sam,
fully explain why.
Sam. This is where all the bullshit goes to die, Sam. We're not interested in what happened. We watched the game. We saw what happened. We're going to tell you why it happened, okay? And how it happened, okay? So that's what the film study does. This is all just, a lot of talk. It's really nice. But you need to see it, see where the mistakes were made, and see where the good stuff was done.
Yeah. And it's not the last you're going to see a gorgeous Borges. We're going to do some things in the offseason as well. A lot of people were asking about maybe doing a series of talking about basic understanding and basic fundamentals. Maybe we'll just go through and run through plays. This is a duo. This is an inside zone. This is a split zone. This is a counter, and just kind of give you
A
a
key. Give
glossary,
him a key, Sam.
a key, a key. Of course,
Yeah.
of course, you would call it the key, right? So anyway, folks, it's been a blast all season. I hope it made your enjoyment of Michigan football even greater because you understand more of it, right? Hopefully, you were at the water cooler, kind of schooling people on the game. Like, how did you know that? because you did your homework. You did your homework. So we're gonna keep helping you do that. In the meantime, in between
Amen.
time, thanks for watching another Michigan football breakdown. Be sure to follow us over on the Michigan Insider. Got another update on the Harbaugh coaching rumors saga coming later on today over the MichiganInsider.com. So be sure to check that out. Until then, thanks for watching another Michigan football breakdown focused on the offense with Al Borges.
Go freaking blue.